Morning, everybody. Welcome to the channel. It's Monday morning. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I do know that some of these mask mandates have come back in some of the states. I know here in Connecticut, they're mandating masks again. It's exactly what we all had anticipated. They were going to let us out of our cages and let us be free for a while. And all the while, they just kept the division going, kept the blame game going. They couldn't let up on that, but they did allow us not to wear masks for a while, and now there are reimposing mask mandates. Give a shout out if your state has reimposed the mask mandate over the weekend so that everybody can be aware of what's going on in this. Gosh, it just feels like we're in another dimension, doesn't it, with some of this stuff, with how everything is just progressing so quickly and so rapidly. I do anticipate at a certain point, I hope that this will all be over, but I don't bank on that, because these people pretty much do what they want. And at this point, we're all just being manipulated. So what's today's show about? Well, I promised you guys that I would take a closer look at overall death rates of countries and their associated GRUN policies. We have to call it a GRUN because, you guys know why we have to call it a GRUN. Grunions, gruns, call it what you want, but you can't say what it is because they love that. Algorithms pick it up and they just bury your content so that no one can get the message. So we're going to call it a GRUN because we like to make fun of them back, right? For their micromanagement of information. So, long story short, I wanted to look at the overall death rates of these countries to see if the countries that had a lot of GRUN freedoms were more dangerous places to live in terms of overall life expectancy. So, I think this is something we can look at. Now, of course, they'll say, oh, well, a good portion of that life expectancy and those rates of death, well, what if it's shifted toward GRUN deaths? That would be an indicator. Well, we're not going to look at that. We're looking at overall your life expectancy of where you live, and in those countries, how many GRUNs are there. That's what we're going to look at today. We're also going to look at policies of countries that have made GRUNs illegal, right? Now, I was shocked at what I found with just a little bit of research, because what you would expect is that here in America, we have 300 million GRUNs. We have 1 GRUN per person, basically. We have like the most in the world. And you would expect that our life expectancy rate would be really, really low. That people would just, that there would be a lot of violence because of that. And that their odds of coming in contact with one of these GRUNs and losing their life would be high. You would think that, right? With all of what the media is pounding into us over the last 20 years that they've been coming after the GRUNs. But in fact, just the opposite, it is true. So the first thing I wanted to do was take a look at the countries with the highest death rates. So this is just overall life expectancy, the highest death rates per 1,000 people. I'm going to magnify this so you guys can see this. And what you're going to notice is that most of these countries are in Eastern Europe, in Russia. Now, I was expecting to see almost all maybe Middle Eastern countries, or maybe a good portion of African nations on here, because we're always seeing all the things going on in Africa with these lords getting power and control. This is what the media keeps showing us over and over again. And you're thinking that, millions of people are just dying, falling out left and right. But that's not the case. Look at, these are all Middle East, these are all Eastern European countries: Bulgaria, Ukraine, Serbia, Latvia, Lesotho. Now, I don't know why they have such high death rates over there. I don't know. Could it be like alcoholism? Is it violence? I don't know. I didn't research that. But look at this: Lithuania, Romania, Hungary, Russia, of course, Belarus, Georgia, Croatia. I was surprised to see Georgia on there as well. Right? Central African Republic. This is the only one. Actually, there's two here. Three. Here's where you get down into Africa. But I was not expecting to see Eastern Europe in terms of the high mortality rate in that country. Here you get down into some of the African nations. And then look, Germany makes the top, or makes the list here. It is the 20th country in terms of mortality rate, death per thousand people. Now, let's look at some of these countries on a map here. Now, here are the lighter color countries. They have the lowest death rate. Places like Canada, right? Or actually Peru. Very, very low death rate in Peru. Zoom this up here. Look at Ecuador. Very low death rate here. Colombia. Oh, we were told that, these drug lords are running out of control and people are dying and dying and dying in Colombia, right? Apparently that's not the case. Very low death rate in these places. And then Northern Africa, very low death rates. Morocco, Algeria, Libya. So the darker countries have the highest death rates. So you see that reflected in what we just showed you in the list of highest death rates. All of these Eastern European countries, very high death rates. And Russia, of course, Somalia. And then you have the Central African nations with relatively high death rates. Okay. So the question is, what does a country with lots of Guuns and lots of actually more powerful Guuns, what does that look like? Because that's the question everybody's probably wondering. Compared to a country where there are far less Guuns, what is the death rate in these types of countries? Well, the media wants you to believe that America is not a safe place for us to live, for us or our children, because we have so many scary Guuns, right? But if you look at the overall death rate in places like America, it tells a much different story. I want to start by comparing some of these countries. So, America has the most Guuns, right? Here's an actual estimated number of civilian Guuns per capita by country. And as you can see here, here's America with greater than 100 Guuns per person. Okay, you have a lot here in America. Of course, there is Alaska that's tacked onto America. We have the most pretty much in the entire world. There's one other country down here. What is this? That's not Somalia. That's is that Yemen? There might be Yemen there with a lot of Guuns. Some places in Europe, and I think that's Sweden. So let's start comparing some of these countries, right? France. Let's look at France. France has less than a third of the Guuns that America does. So we've got America with greater than 100 Guuns per 100 people. And then let's look at France. France is somewhere in here at about 5 to 10%. I'm sorry. They have a higher death rate than America with a fraction of the Guuns. Looks like they're at about maybe, oh yeah, it's 5 to 10%. They have 5 to 10%. Or actually half, I'm sorry. Getting confused here. I'm looking at Spain and thinking it's France, and it's not. So, France is right around about half to a third of the Guuns that are in America. But yet, look at the death rate of France. They're at 9.1. America is at 8.7. So France has a higher rate of death than America with a third or half of the Guuns. So there you go. That tells you something. Now, Spain has about the same death rate as America, we're at 8.7. Let's move this over. We're at 8.7. Spain is at 8.8. Almost exactly the same mortality rate or death rate, but yet look at how many Guuns Spain has. We don't want this. They have about 5 to 10% of the amount of Guuns that we do. See the color there? But yet, the same rate of death. Now, what about the UK? The UK, as you can see here, they have an even higher death rate than America. Let's look at their death rate. UK is at 9. We're at 8.7. So more people, you have more likelihood of dying in the UK than you do the US. Well, let's take a look at their Guuns. Where'd the map go? What's the UK look like? Well, they're here in this very light teal color, which is less than 5 Guuns per 100 people. So you're walking down the street, you see 100 people. There are less than 5 Guuns in that group of 100 people. That's crazy. But yet the same death rate. So I would think that looking at a place like the UK would give you a really good idea of a Western country that is a lot like ours, but with a lot less Guuns, but the same or a higher rate of death. So what does that mean? Well, basically, it just means that we've been propagandized to fear having lots of Guuns around. I think there's a group of people that is afraid of Guuns because they know they have an agenda to push. They don't want anything standing in their way. Let's look at Finland and Sweden. Now, I was shocked at this because Finland and Sweden have higher rates of death than America. Here's Finland at 9.8, Sweden at 8.6. Well, actually, we're at 8.7, so we're about the same as Sweden, but Finland has a much higher rate of death than America does. But yet, look at their Guuns. They have a lot less Guuns than we do. They're hovering right around about half to a third of the amount of Guuns that America has, as you can see with this map here. So, what is the truth here? The truth is that the Guun death in the news is hyperbolized. It's made to sound worse than it actually is in America. And the agenda is not about safety, but it's about control. Because if America was such a dangerous place to live, because of Guuns, then we would have a huge problem, right? We would start to look like some of these other nations. Now, why is this happening? Why are they trying to make it sound worse than it is? Well, they want to push through agendas like this. Look at what's happening in Idaho. Blaming the anti-sticker people for basically everything that's going on right now. Now, I can't believe the Idaho Statesman would put out a story like this because they're going to get some huge backlash from people that live in Idaho. Blaming the people that didn't get the sticker. This is crazy. Well, that didn't last long. Our little taste of life is somewhat normal. Has been short-lived. We're back to wearing masks indoors and talking about canceling live events because of a resurgence of cases. Really? This is infuriating and frustrating, especially for those of us who have been doing the right thing all along. Doing the right thing is protecting yourself, not forcing others to feel like you need to protect them too. The Delta variant of the novel CV-19 is spreading like wildfire. driving up cases, hospitalizations, and deaths. It says, and some people who are unstickered and unmasked are walking around like back to normal. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. I know that you thought you could fly under the radar until things went back to normal. Look how they write these stories. And when all of us were stickered, people took off their masks like Mary Tyler Moore in the middle of Midtown Minneapolis. You all thought you got away with it. Well, you didn't. And here we are, back to the spamdemic. I'm sorry, but this doesn't feel like a spamdemic. Let's look at the rates. Let's look at case rates. Get an updated picture of this. So, these are the rates of death as of July 19th, which was several weeks ago. Now, of course, they're going to have this shoot up, right? As this data comes in, this data looks like it's several weeks behind, but look at this. In the entire country, this was as of July 19th, 7-day average was 350 deaths for the entire country. That's a little over maybe 20 people per day in each state. Something like that. So, this is weird. Why are they pushing this? They're making it sound like the end of the world. This was January. There was a small wave there. But, you know, you read these stories and they try to make it sound like it's the end of the world. So, I wanted to show you guys this graph too. These are all the Guuns, or all the countries where Guuns are illegal. So, this is India. This is China. That, I think, is Iraq or Iran. Let's go back here. That is, oh, that's Saudi Arabia. And so they have relatively low rate of death for their citizens in Saudi Arabia. It looks like about 3.5. India, Guuns are illegal, 7. China, 7.1. So they are a little bit lower. Well, some of them are significantly lower than the U.S. if you were to make it completely illegal. Is there any other countries on here? Let's take a look here. Let's look at, is that Malaysia? Let's look at Malaysia here. Guuns are illegal there. And their rate, oh, that's Indonesia, sorry, is 6.51. So lower. But I don't think anybody wants to live in a society where Guuns are completely illegal. I don't want to live in a society like that. There's a million reasons to need a Guun. A lot of people live in these unincorporated areas or out in the frontier. And you basically need to protect yourself from wild animals. There's been several bear attacks up in like Montana recently. Campers, just bears coming into their tents. And if you're out on a ranch, you got to protect your livestock and your animals. But of course, they want to roast places like Idaho. Pray for the people of Idaho. Now, here's some good news. There is good news. At least DeSantis is standing up for now. He said he will bar Florida school districts from mandating masks. Remember last week we were talking about one of the school districts, I think it was Broward County, that wanted to defy his orders? Let's see what this article has to say about that. Ron DeSantis on Friday issued an executive order that bars local school districts from requiring students to wear masks. when they return to the classroom next month. Why it matters? Well, of course, they're saying there's an upsurge in places like Florida of hospitalizations. And when they say upsurge in deaths, they're talking about percentages of increases, not actual number of cases. Because if you looked at the number of cases overall compared to the entire population of Florida, it would be minuscule. But it sounds really impressive when they say an increase of 500%. So if you take 5 and you get 500%, 5 turns into what? 500 cases. That sounds like a lot, but it's still a very low number. And this is how they manipulate statistics and data. So I got to be careful when you hear these statements being made. Okay. Now, DeSantis' announcement comes after the Broward County School Board passed a mask mandate Wednesday due to new guidance, which recommends universal indoor masking for all teachers, staff, students, visitors. The order directs the Florida Department of Education to issue emergency rules protecting the rights of parents to make decisions about wearing masks in their children. I think it's very good that they're doing this. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure that Broward County will probably sue the governor. This is what will probably happen. So, what else do we have here? So, here's what's coming. You're going to be asked to prove your sticker status. Here's how to do it. Wow, let's watch and read this. A patient shows her CV-19 sticker card at the clinic in Los Angeles. Congratulations, you've been stickered against the CV-19. Now you have to prove it, and your smartphone can help. Across the world, fears about the contagious variant are leading more businesses, schools, and travel destinations to require stickers. Like it or not, there's a real chance that somewhere you want to go will ask to see proof of your sticker. Let's say you're planning to visit Hawaii. You'll need to be stickered, show a negative test if you want to avoid quarantine. Now, here's the crazy thing. I was watching a video in France, for instance. If you want to travel anywhere from France to like the UK or back and forth, they basically require you to take tests along the route. One lady said she took like 4 tests going from one location to the other, and they make you pay for those tests. So I would probably assume that at some point, all of this testing that they're requiring, if you don't get stickered, at some point they're going to put it back on the people who don't want the sticker to have to pay for those tests. Right now, those tests might be free, but very soon I can imagine those tests will start to cost money. So now you have a test tax, right? So in other words, in order to operate on the same level of freedom as the people that have the sticker, you're required to take a test, and that becomes a test tax because you're having to pay for something that they don't, right? Unbelievable. It says you'll need proof to work in the federal government at tech firms such as Google, Facebook, Uber, growing list of other companies. And in New York and San Francisco, you'll need it to go inside a bar, get a seat at some restaurants, or take in a show on Broadway. So how do you do that without carrying your white card from the C to the D to the C? There is a growing number of ways to store your record. And this is where you get into ideas of chips and marks and things like that at some point in the future. People are going to give in. They're going to go, you know what? I'll just stick a chip in my arm, and any new stickers that are required, it will automatically register. I'll wave my hand over some kind of reader, and that will be a mark that you will need to buy and sell. Do you see how that's a whole lot different than what we're dealing with now? This is a precursor. This is just basically testing the waters, because at a certain point, people are going to be in so much fear, and they're just going to keep parading out these new variants and conditions and diseases. Some of them will be somewhat real. Others will be completely made up. And then People are going to get tired of having to carry paper, and they're going to get tired of losing their cell phone, or they'll make something else up. They'll have people's cell phones getting hacked, right? And then they'll say, oh, your data was erased. So we have no proof that you got the sticker. So, well, the best way to really, really do this is to have a closed system, and it's marked on your chip that's inside your wrist in your right hand. And that's what this is going to probably come down to. Now, I would have never guessed that a spamdemic was going to be the way that we would have this one world order. I would have never guessed that. I mean, we kind of talked about it before it happened, but I had no idea it would be to this degree, that this would be the catalyst. But then we started reading in Revelation 6 about the white horse carrying the crown and the bow. And this is the first of the horses of the apocalypse. So maybe this was it all along. It certainly seems that once that these controllers have got a hold of this power, that they won't be letting it go anytime soon. They've basically destroyed the small businesses in America. The only ones left standing are like franchises and people that are trying to work from home or things like that. But in the end, they will make that illegal. And if you don't have the ability to have a brick and mortar footprint for your business, then they will say you can't operate a business. And it will come with all these requirements that are impossible for many people to attain, except for except for corporations with deep pockets. And I believe that's where all this is headed in the next 5 to 10 years. See, they even talk about it. They do a little mention here. They just know this technology is still evolving. Places are making up their own rules about what they'll accept as proof as they go along. So you still might want to carry that physical card with you when you're headed somewhere super important. Whether businesses or governments should ask you to prove your sticker status is deeply personal and political. Apps known as passports helped fuel a long-running debate over personal freedom versus public health. There should be no debate. If the public wants to protect their health, then you have the right to protect your health. Some places banned them from before they were even developed. The first state-sponsored app, New York's Excelsior Pass, failed to pick up wide traction this spring after the rates dropped, among other concerns. The term vaccine passport may be out of fashion, but you still might have more digital options than you realize. There's portals, download fully authenticated sticker information, and more on the way. And millions across the U.S. have access to digital records. Wow. Yeah, what if these digital records get hacked? They can't guarantee the privacy of your medical information when it's out there on the cloud. So, obviously, they're making the case to go digital, which will eventually end up to be some kind of hardware that they will say is impenetrable. I mean, they could even like dovetail this in with blockchain technology. Okay? They'll say it's unhackable. And maybe that's why the blockchain is basically dovetailing and coinciding with this spamdemic, because they're going to roll it all out into one. They're going to say, look, this is impenetrable. We're going to use blockchain technology to keep your medical information private. Unbelievable. WHO expert says the Delta poses stark choice between behavior change or more lockdowns. So they're just continuing to threaten us, right? Let me make sure you guys are still with me before we finish up this last article. Thanks everybody for showing up on Monday. The growing spread of the CV-19 is creating an increasingly stark choice that could make the difference between more reopenings or a return to restrictions that decimated the world's economy. Amid the leak of internal documents from the U.S., Comparing the transmissibility of the Delta, that of chickenpox, new discoveries are sparking furious debate about how vulnerable the stickered could be to transmitting CV-19 should they get it. They're not going to be transmitting it to people that have already been stickered, right? Or will they? We're seeing a much different story emerge, aren't we? With already stickered people still getting sick, still passing it around. It has also highlighted the struggles of public health officials to boost the mass sticker effort, encourage the voluntary use of masks in public. Notice how none of these articles talk about those who have gained natural immunity. None of these articles talk about it. They don't even mention the words natural immunity. They don't even take into account people that have already tested positive for it, which, hello, look at all the quote unquote cases, right? What are we up to now? Let's take a look. Total cases of So here are the total cases, right? We're told that 35 million people have already had CV-19 since the beginning of this. So, should those 35 million people now, since they've already had it, they shouldn't be required to get a sticker, right? No one talks about this huge number. This is 1 in 10 people in the United States that shouldn't have to get a sticker if they've already had immunity to it, right? But that is not being talked about at all. Nowhere to be seen in the media. So, there's something afoot here, obviously. You guys know. But it's good to review and get an update on some of this stuff. And let's go into the chat here. It's like 7 grain lost their dad. That's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that. Father-in-law died 5 days later. Wow. Old age. Did either of them get the sticker? 7 grains? Don't ride the white horse, Isaac says. Some people are putting a time frame on those to live who have gotten the sticker. Everything that I've been seeing in the programming seems to show that there's some kind of ticking time. I just decoded Old, the movie Old by M. Night Shyamalan. Here it is here. We'll be doing a full show on that. But the basic plot of this is these people that are stuck on this island and their life ticks away very rapidly within 24 hours. And as they're stuck on this beach, there's a pharmaceutical drug component to it as well, as they're all given this concoction, these test cures, these stickers. They're given that before they go on. And so the inference there is that there's a time limit to their life. So this is what they're talking about in fictional entertainment. But as we know, a lot of this stuff comes to fruition. All right. Isn't why they're doing all this far more important? Yes. And that is control. As well as, I believe there's some kind of component to this that is somehow going to change people. Okay? Or even make them sick on some level at a certain point. So we're waiting. I mean, a lot of people already have. When you sum total all these rare conditions, then when you add them all up, it turns into something far different. Look at, they've got us stuck on 666 viewers. Isn't that weird? They like to do that a lot. All right, let's go back here in the chat. Broward County hospitals are preparing for a wave of hospitalizations. God has removed thirst for alcohol, desire for TV, concerts. Yeah, same here. Like, there's just, I have no desire to be in that social scene anymore. And I haven't for a long time, actually. Almost as though God was preparing us, right? I just don't have a thirst for it. It doesn't even, like, being in crowds of people. I went to a theme park not too long ago. Got a free ticket. And though I had fun, it wasn't like my memory that I had of going to places like that. I felt claustrophobic. I felt the crowd was too big. I just didn't enjoy it. I thought, well, maybe it's my age. You know, maybe it's just, this is just what happens. But I don't think that's the case. I think God's preparing us to let go of the things of this world that we used to love. It's not to say that you can't have fun, but maybe it's the smaller things that we do that we find joy in. You know, maybe it's a barbecue, or just sitting out on your porch watching the sun come up in the morning, or taking a hike out in nature. But all of this pre-packaged concerts and all these things that we used to feel like we had to do, I just don't have a desire to do anymore. I don't know about you guys. So we're being delivered from all of it, says Deal Ike. The factor is self-worship. Form, let's see. Come out of her, my people. Yeah, that's what God tells us to do. Many times he told different peoples that followed him, it's time to detach yourself from the place where you live, and it's time to leave. Sometimes they wanted to leave, and other times they didn't. Most of the time they would leave, and then they would like look back and go, oh, we wish we had it like that again. And God would show them glimpses of what life was like if you want to go back there. One woman got turned to salt, Lot's wife. The Israelites got eaten with fiery serpents thrown at them, and it was killing them until they looked upon the blue blood snake on a pole to remind them of where they came from. So, this is what's really going on. I don't ever want to look back, because God brings you through the wilderness because there is something much better on the other side. For the Israelites, it was the promised land. For Lot and his wife, I can't remember what their reward was. Well, she didn't make it, but he went on to greater things. All right, what else do we have here? Living for this world is like falling out of a building, grabbing napkins on the way down. Exactly. I'll end the show today with a story, a personal story, of my experience in quote-unquote the world. You know, the more money you make, the more they take. We all know that that's the case. Well, some of you might not know if that's the case or not, but others of you do. But basically, if any of you have had any amount of success in your life, you'll realize that this modern experience that we call life is very hard to hold on to. There are about 100 things that can happen to you to take away what you think is yours. And the harder you hold on to it, the more that you will lose it. I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 10 years, and then I worked in sales for laboratories for another 5 years. So it's in total about 15 years in the medical industry, mostly dealing with women's health care. Now, I've repented of all that. Obviously, I'm doing this now, warning people about those industries instead of selling those things to people, right? And so when people talk about your allegiance and who you love, obviously I took a huge pay cut to come do this. I did what Jesus said. I picked up my cross and I followed him instead of following the world and following success and following money, right? And God takes care of us. It's not always perfect. Yeah, we live under the threat of YouTube wiping us out. But I would rather have that and live on faith that God's going to keep us okay than to go back to that world. You know, even if it meant walking away from a 6-figure income, which I did. And so in that world, you know, the more money you make, the more they take. First of all, that's the first thing that happens. And then there are all these paradigms set up that convince you that you can get rich if you just hang in there. Oh, just contribute to your 401k. Oh, just buy a home. Oh, just do this, just do that. Have tax write-offs. And you're basically invested in this entire straw man. Why do I call it a straw man? Because the employers still have all the power. I don't care what you say. I don't care how good you are at what you do. The employers hold all the power. And we're seeing that right now, are we not? The people who don't want to get a sticker have lost all their power. And so this went on for 15 years, and I had it and lost it all like 2 or 3 times. Lost our home, lost this, lost that. And I began to realize, after being laid off several times, this is ridiculous. These people have all the power. I remember the first time I got laid off and I went into my boss. I go, you're really going to fire me? I've been with this company for 4 years. What have I done wrong? Well, you didn't really do anything wrong. We just have to downsize. So what do I get? We'll give you a small severance package and good luck with finding a new job. I go, well, I mean, to think how naive I was back then. I was like, well, I have a mortgage and my wife stays home with my kids. What am I going to do? I actually said that to the people that fired me. And they just looked at me and said, we're really sorry. We have to come pick up your company car. Now, I'm not telling you this story for you to feel sorry for me. I'm telling you this story so that you can understand that nothing is permanent. You might think it is. You might think that you got your job on lock and you'll never get fired. And that's when people end up taking themselves out. When they lose something that they thought was a lock and they have no idea what to do or how to feel. They blame themselves, which is what I did many times. I'm like, well, maybe I just suck as a rep. Or maybe I just this, or maybe I just that. But it was never my fault. It was always the world we live in. There is no allegiance with these people. There is no loyalty. Now, there might have been a time in American history where there was loyalty. You know, they want us to believe that. Back in the, I don't know, the 50s or the 60s. Some people who started back then maybe had their jobs for their entire lives, but we live in a completely different world now. How do you build a life around uncertainty like that? And a lot of people say, hey, Casey, just get another job. Why are you complaining? It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Even people that have skills that they learned. Like, I'm not even talking about sales or service skills. I'm talking about people that have real skills. Because think about it. Okay, you might be able to get another job, but where is that job going to be? In a state 5 states over? Maybe. So now you have to sell your house, which a lot of people end up taking a loss because the layoffs usually happen when the market's down, and you've got to sell your house at a loss and go buy another one. So you got to pull money out of your 401k to make yourself whole, or to just get the house sold, or you got to short sell it. These are all the little stories that no one ever talks about when they're pumping up economies and saying how great America is and all these things. They don't tell you all these little stories. Or not to mention, some of us marry greedy spouses, right? And what happens with that? Oh, we've got $200,000 in equity in the house. I'm taking half. Boom. There are some people that think that way. I'm not happy in this marriage anyway. See ya. So there's all these factors working against people. Now, of course, every time I give this speech, there's always a few people in the chat that say, I've owned my business for such years. We've been profitable every single year. I've been married for 40 years. What are you talking about, Casey? You can have it. It's just who you choose. You can, but understand that people like that are the exception to the rule. This isn't the norm. They're the exception to the rule. And how do I know that? Well, because the programming programs people in America to be greedy, programs people to think of themselves, to be selfish, programs people to only think about what have you done for me lately. And so all that programming trickles down into people's subconscious mind, and then they start behaving like the things they watch on TV. If they're not awake anyways. They start acting it out. I'm going to get my child support. Why do you think they talk about all these stories about these actors and celebrities paying out hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in child support? Or people walking away from a marriage with $30 million that did nothing to deserve that? Why do you think they talk about that stuff in the media? They talk about it because it's subconscious programming. So that even though most of us don't have that kind of money, someone could go look and go, ooh, my attorney promised to get me $20,000. Right? It's programming. And that's what our society has become. So, nothing is for sure. I mean, there are very few things. The best you could probably do is not be carrying a mortgage on a house. Have the property paid off. In certain parts of this country you could still go to. Build a homestead without having to carry a mortgage. If you're careful with your money. There are places where you can still do that in America. A lot of people don't want to live in those places, though. They want to live in the hills. They don't want to live way deep in the Midwest. Why? Because all the programming they've been told. You don't want to live out there. Those people, they don't know anything. And you're going to be around these kind of people. Look, I don't care. And people in the Midwest are amazing. They're God-fearing people. But the programming tells you something different. They're a bunch of right-wing nuts. You see how that works? And all that's done because the powers that be don't want people without a mortgage, because they want to keep you slaves. They want to keep you in the system. Because every roadblock that they put up, every trap that they put up, they're making money off of, right? The lawyers are making money. The mortgage companies are making money every time they refinance your house. The cops who pull you over for traffic stops are making money. They don't want you in a place where they can't patrol, or they can't refinance your house, or they can't tax you on something. And that is their American dream. How much money can we get out of an American without them catching on? That's the true American dream. Not what this pipe dream that they sell all of us, that you can be like Beyonce one day. You can be like Jay-Z. You can have millions of dollars like such and such. The entire purpose of a celebrity class is to make you keep wanting to be a celebrity. It's to keep making you want to go to work every day. Even though something in your gut is telling you, this really sucks. I go into this job every day, put a smile on my face, get treated like crap. I spend, three-quarter or a quarter of my life working for someone else. And then the times that they give us to have a vacation, everything's crowded. The gas prices go up. Can't even book a hotel. It's twice the cost of it would be on the days that I can get off. My children aren't in a safe school. This ain't no American dream. This is a money pit. That's what America is. It's a money pit. And the people that have it usually pass it down to people that they know or love or their children. And those of us that don't have it are just scratching and clawing to make an existence. And that's the truth. Now, a lot of people don't want to hear that because it sounds depressing, but it's the truth. And you guys all know it. Some of you have shared with me who've had businesses even over the last 5 or 10 years that business has changed. And not just because of CV19. It's what's called encroachment. There's this encroachment just trickling into our lives very slowly. It's like a boa constrictor slowly tightening its grasp around our necks. And it's subtle. It's here and there. Little tax there. A little rule there that you can't do this. And the rules just keep coming. It's a barrage, a consistent, barely detectable barrage of control. Example, some people used to make money making tacos out of their trunk. Oh, can't do that. Health department says you can't do that. Some people used to make a little bit of money mowing lawns. Oh, you got to have a business license for that now. Some people used to make money fixing cars. Oh, you can no longer fix cars in a residential neighborhood. And these things sound like they're going to make your quality of life better until you have to rely on one of those ways to make money. And you can't do it because the rules say you can't. You see how this works? Don't ever, ever think that more control and more laws is going to make your life better. Because one day you may have to rely on one of those things that is now illegal to make money or to survive. The people at the top don't care. They've already got their money and they know how to make money out of nothing. You know, I've got a couple friends that are all into this Bitcoin thing or, I'm like, look, first of all, you need to have money to make money. Okay. I could go right now and sign up for Bitcoin and buy $100 worth of Bitcoin. It could triple in value. Let's say it went up 500%. My $100 turned into what? $1,000? I don't know. I don't know my percentages very well. Well, let's just get a scenario here. Okay, I went from $100 to $500 or $100 to $1,000. Okay, so now I've got $1,000. Oh, big deal. Big deal, right? But here's the problem. The whole time, my $100 has been stuck in some account to get that $1,000. How long did it take to do that? Well, a lot of people would say, oh, wow, that stock performed. It performed. It went up 500%. How long did it take to do that? 2 years. So now your $100 has been stuck for 2 years just so you could pull $500 out. Well, now you've got $500, but what happened to inflation during that time? Prime example, all of our food prices went up. In some places, you are paying twice of what you paid 2 years ago for certain food items. Twice. Rents have gone through the roof. A lot of people can't even afford to rent anymore. Well, Casey, they can't find enough people to go to work. The fast food restaurants are paying $14 an hour. Just go over there. The fast food places are paying $14 an hour. Is that full-time work? Of course it's not. So now you're going to have to get 2 and 3 jobs. Where is the law that says that you have to offer full-time work? Why is it in America that they get away with giving people 1 or 2 days a week of work when they could easily just put a full-time crew together? It's because they don't want to pay benefits. Oh, we've got a Democratic president in. You'd think he'd want to fix stuff like that. But we're the dumb ones who don't demand it. We don't look at businesses and go, look, how is it that you're able to hire all these part-time people and none of these people are full-time? You just pick people off. And you got Americans on their bikes or riding between 15 different jobs just to make ends meet. It's enough to drive you insane. And I'm blessed that I don't have to do that. But a lot of you do. Who's standing up for you? It used to be just 2 jobs was a big deal. Person would say, wow, I have 2 jobs. And people felt sorry for them. They're like, wow, that sucks that you have to have 2 jobs like that. Now there's people with 5 and 6 jobs. They can't get full time. No, working 5 or 6 jobs with no benefits. So now what? They hurt themselves. What happens? They just can't work. And this is how they grind down the American psyche. This is why people aren't informed or they don't have the energy to stand up for their rights because they've been ground down. Like putting coffee beans in a coffee grinder. Ground down to nothing. They don't have the energy to stand up to anything. So they're like, oh, you want me to get a sticker? Okay, I'll just get a sticker. Because the only thing that ever mattered to me anyway was to be able to go to a concert. And so, it's unbelievable what's happened to American life right under our noses and no one even realizes it. And I understand we have it a lot better than a lot of countries, but we are probably one of the most deceived countries in the world. We are one of the most deceived because we actually think that we're going to be young forever and be able to work 4 and 5 jobs without our backs going out or just getting sick of it. Sick of running around like a little squirrel making everyone else rich while we're basically working slaves. So one day people are going to wake up to it. I know I did. After about the 3rd time I got laid off, I was like, I don't want your stupid job anyway. I'll just go expose you all to the world. I have enough information about what you guys do, how you're making people sick, to expose you all. And that's what I do. And you can call that whatever you want, but it's justice is what it is. Because they can't get away with this. These multi-billion-dollar companies running around enslaving people. They can't get away with it. If I ever have a breath left in my lungs, then I will continue to expose them. And we have exposed them on many occasions. But anyway, it's fun talking to you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be back on here tomorrow. We've got, we're going to decode old. And what else? What else we got here? Oh, we're going to talk about the Zuckerberg's breakthrough to the stars project. I believe this is about the firmament. So we're going to look at that, how ridiculous this is. He's going to fly foil kites into the sky and shoot them with lasers. Seriously? Yeah, right. So that's what we're going to work on tomorrow and the day after. Love each and every one of you. Have a great day, you guys. Take care and be safe.